Welcome to Voices of the Valley, a captivating podcast series that brings together some of the brightest minds in the agriculture industry. Straight from the field to your living room, we explore the challenges, innovation, and triumphs in modern-day farming and provide insight for consumers who are curious about where their food comes from. Hello everybody, this is Corey Lundy from Western Growers. Today we have a very special guest with us here on Voices of the Valley. I am sitting in a barn on the property of Sarah Rodriguez here in Tular Canyon in the Salinas Valley. Sarah Rodriguez is married to Trey Rodriguez of the Rodriguez family. Those of you in Western Growers may be familiar with Trey's father, Sarah's father-in-law, Sonny Rodriguez. He was our Western Growers Award of Honor recipient last year, 2024 annual meeting. Sarah also comes from another Western Growers family, American Cooling, Mike Azzopardi. So today I would like to welcome Sarah to the program, and we are going to talk about her, I'd call it a passion project, but it's really a lifestyle at this point, the Canyon House. So let's start with a very basic question, Sarah. What is the Canyon House?
Yeah, so thank you for having me. This is quite an honor. Very blessed. So the Canyon House is a equine sanctuary, specifically sanctuary meaning the equines stay here forever. They live out their life. And specifically it's geared toward draft horses who have found themselves in maybe a precarious situation, maybe headed down the slaughter path or the slaughter pipeline. Any draft horse that might need help. And a draft horse would be what I call the heavy hitters. They would be like the horses that you might see in the Amish communities that pull like the heavy farm equipment, the ones that might be taking you down a carriage ride in Central Park. So yeah, that would be pretty much what it is.
Now, Sarah, this is a bit of a departure from maybe the industry that you grew up in, the produce industry. Take us kind of back to the beginning. How long has the Canyon House been around, and what inspired you to start it?
So I have a horse background, an equine background. I've been riding horses since I was 4. So someone asked me the other day, like, where did this, do you even know what horse, did you just all of a sudden start this? Kind of, but I have had horses pretty much my entire life, and I kind of got out of it. And then recently I obviously kind of got back into it. And I would say it kind of started 2 years ago. I was kind of trolling through YouTube. I saw a donkey that was available for adoption, and I looked at Trey and I was like, well, we have the 2 horses because we had just purchased 2 horses like a year prior, and then we had the 2 dogs. And I said, we should adopt a donkey, Trey. And he said, yeah, like whatever, sure, whatever you want. So I went on to this Rescue Pages website, and they had this donkey. When I got to the page, I realized that the donkey was not available for adoption like locally. It was a rescue that was in Tennessee, but I started like going through this website of this equine rescue, and my eyes were just completely open to this whole kill pen, equine slaughter, equine exploitation, and what happens to our horses and America's horses that nobody knows about. And for me, that was like, wait, I've had horses my whole life. How did I not know that this happened? I thought when you had a horse and it got old, you put it down and you buried it, or, you did the common disposal, and that was that. And like, that's what I thought happened to old horses. That is absolutely not what happens to old horses. I'm not even to say old horses. That happens to all kinds of horses.
And you may be hearing some of the background noise from the barn animals here. There are a number of chickens and dogs and other animals running around. So we wanted to give you an authentic listening experience here. I think it's fascinating that your eyes were open to a particular need, but you didn't just keep scrolling. You actually stopped and you decided to do something about it. What do you think made you take action rather than just kind of push this out of your mind and go on with your regular daily life?
Yeah, so I didn't end up adopting that donkey, but I felt like as I started following, I became obsessed with this because I just couldn't let it go out of my mind. And I knew that I could help in some sort of capacity. Most people would just maybe donate if you felt compelled, or like the post, or share it or whatever, and then just move on. But I was like, I have horse knowledge. I have energy. I'm quote unquote young, fit. I have a 6-month-old, but like, that's fine. He can participate. This can be I can help in some way. I didn't know what that way was at that time, but I felt like I could do something to share what was going on in what we didn't know about. There's 20,000 horses that are getting sent across the border to Mexico for human consumption every year. I mean, I didn't know. Who knows that? Not a lot of people that have horses know that. So I started following all these equine rescues, and I was watching one of the stories from a rescue that I really love and that I really respect. And she was at the kill pen in Texas, and she was like, I need a draft horse sanctuary. Like, there's all these draft horses. It was like middle of November or December or something. And she was like, all these draft horses are here. All these, like, there's so many around the country, but we don't have any over here, in California and Arizona and like in this area. And she was just, just very upset about there's these horses that have nowhere to go. And I'm like, draft horse sanctuary. And she goes, I was thinking as she's talking, and she goes, a lot of people don't want these draft horses or can't take these draft horses because, number one, they're enormous. They're huge. They're twice the size of a regular horse. They're 2,000 pounds or more. You need 3 or 4 times as much food to feed them, and you need space, and you need shoeing stocks. And I didn't know what that was at the time. And she explained, and it's like a device where you put them in, you pick their feet up. These horses, side note, these Amish horses, they come from Amish communities. They don't teach them to pick their feet up. You need a special device, but that's another story. So I was like, well, we have 87 acres. We have the ability to source tons of hay from Yuma, Arizona. These are senior horses. They don't need like exercise. They don't need to be trained. They just need a soft landing, as you'd call in the rescue world, a soft landing. I mean, I could do that. So I told Trey, hey, I want to start a draft horse sanctuary. And he was like, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. He's like, why don't you just wait a little bit and like, we'll work it out and we'll talk about it. And he's like, well, where are you going to put, like, what do you mean? Like, where did this, so we kind of like, he was like, it was on the way to work. Like, my timing was terrible with it. And, I was like, well, whatever. So the next week I went on the kill pen page and I bought 6 draft horses. And they showed up.
Jumped into the deep end.
Jumped right off the deep end right there, 6. Because like, we can't just get 1 dog. We have to get 2 dogs. And we can't just get 1 chicken. We have to get 30 chickens. So I couldn't just get 1 draft horse. Like, they need a friend. And like, what if they didn't get along? So like, I needed... And then the lady
Options,
that was... Yeah, and the lady that was going to bring them to me, a month later after they spent time in quarantine, I needed to fill the trailer to like make this economical. She was going to charge me X amount to come out to California. Well, I'm going to fill up the trailer. So that's how many horses could fit in the trailer. So I'm going to get that many of them.
And very logical.
Very
process.
logical. Very logical. Like, fill her up. Yeah. Yeah.
So it started with 6 draft horses. When was that? And where are we at today? How many horses do you have?
That was in October of 23 was when the first ones got here. And we today have 32 equines. And I say equines because 2 of them are donkeys.
And so in the year plus that you've been doing this, how do you decide which horses or which equine to rescue and care for?
So I would say we were specific to draft horses. That's the direction that I wanted to go. And I wanted to do seniors. A lot of rescues are not sanctuaries. So they will bring horses in and then turn it around and then adopt them out. Senior horses are not easy to adopt out to another family, or, they will come in, they rehabilitate them, and then they adopt them out. Nobody wants to adopt a senior horse because you want to ride them. Your kids want to ride them. You want to ride them. And that was the whole like connect for me. It's like these seniors need somewhere to go. And that's why the Amish people are dumping them. They don't want to deal with them anymore. They need maintenance. Get rid of them. Winter's coming. I don't want to feed them. So off to slaughter that they go. And then they're exploited in the process, and they get sick and they get skinny, and then they don't trust people, and then they're all messed up when they get here. Mm-hmm. But, we get through that. But I was really like geared. What I saw when those 6 draft horses got here, that was really what it was for me. It was like, I need to do the seniors because nobody else is doing that. There's one senior draft horse rescue, but they're in Pennsylvania that I know of. But there was nobody doing that. There was nobody providing senior care because it's a sanctuary. Like, you have to feed them for life. Mm-hmm. That's expensive. That takes a lot of time. Like, and then, it's hospice here. It's a hospice center, and people don't want to see animals die. Mm-hmm. Every animal that comes here is going to die at some point. And Trey helps me, and of course the vets, I don't make these decisions myself, but at some point this is end of life, which not a lot of people want to do that, but it does. They just ship them to slaughter and don't want to deal with them. And that's the end of life that mm-hmm. people, I don't want to deal with this anymore because this is a problem. So that's where my focus is. We do have some other, randoms in there. I've got a couple minis mm-hmm. and some reservation babies that were rounded up from the reservation. So some mixed of them in there, but majority of them here are draft seniors.
So with 32 equine, is there one or several that you have bonded with in particular? Is there a story that comes to mind about one of these horses to kind of help our listeners understand where these horses are coming from, what they're like when they get here, and what you have to go through to get them back on the right track?
Yeah, for sure. So Pete, he's a fan favorite, my favorite that I show a lot on my Instagram page. And Pete is enormous. He is 2,200 pounds. He's over 20 hands tall, which is almost 7 feet tall. And he is only 4. And I know I just got through explaining senior draft horses, but Pete was in the kill pen and discarded for a reason, and I didn't know what that reason was. And I just felt like I have to get this horse because somebody's going to see this horse. He's absolutely gorgeous. He's enormous. And they're going to be like, I want that big horse, which is a kind of what I did. But I'm like, this horse is in this kill pen for a reason. There's something wrong with him. I found out later that he has a paralyzed larynx, and he has a condition called string halt, where he has this involuntary hitch in his giddy up, is the best way that I can explain it, which makes him disqualified for doing any sort of riding or work and anything what a horse is supposed to do, what most people think. He can't work. So I'm like, okay, this is going to be a mission. First of all, this horse won't let me catch him. He's absolutely enormous. He's a baby, so he's going to need a ton of training. And I'm still to this day, 1.5 years later, I've bonded with this horse, but we're still working with him to get him to the place where we can work on his feet. And he's the kindest soul, but he just doesn't have a lot of trust, and he's scared of everything. So Pete is absolutely, I would say, you're not supposed to have favorites, but Pete is my favorite. And his name is Little Pete, which is, ironic. Ironic. Of course, I named him Little Pete. And then we had one that really is what got the ball rolling and really what made me mad in this whole rescue process. And we rescued one about a little over a year ago. And we didn't know it at the time, but he had this horrendous hoof crack in his hoof. And this is not Bruce. This is somebody else who's no longer with us, because Bruce has a hoof crack as well. But I think we're going in the right direction with Bruce. So this other horse, he had this horrendous hoof crack. He couldn't even walk. And the people who had owned him before had just continued to work him until he couldn't even walk anymore. And I was like, this is ridiculous and this is crazy, but I have to see what's wrong with this horse, and I have to try to help him because he does not need to stand on a trailer 17 hours to Mexico, mm-hmm. to the border, to then be killed and, slaughtered for what, I don't know. We don't have to get into that, but that was what was this for me, was like, the exploitation. They work them to death. When they're no longer useful, they get rid of them. It's not even about the horse slaughter. It's not even about them, being killed at the end. It's about what they've gone through and what's allowed. And they're sick and they're skinny. And this particular Belgian, he couldn't walk. And I did everything I could. Everything has been out of our own pocket. And I sent him to the best farrier, sent him to the best equine hospital. And we found out that he had cancer in his foot, which is very rare. That's not a very common situation. And it was creating this like very painful hoof deviation. And for me, seeing that people put him through all of that and made it so that he was crippled just to use him to then get rid of him in that condition was just so wrong. And that's what this whole thing is about, is the neglect and the abuse and the lack of care. And when the equines are no longer deemed useful, they just are neglected and they don't care about them anymore. And no one cares. Like, and then they go and like, no one asks a question. Like, you took your dog that was like missing an ear and covered in mange and you took it to the shelter. They're going to be like, what is going on here? Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen with horses. They're just like livestock, but they're not. They're pets for me.
I think for my own sake, we need to maybe step back from the emotions of this. I might not make it through this interview. Maybe you can kind of walk us through a typical day. What does a typical day at the sanctuary look like? You are a professional, you are a mother, you have a day job. How do you handle the duties of the sanctuary with everything else going on in your life? And what does a typical day look like for you? Yeah,
so I have a 2-year-old who is a handful as they are. And I have a working professional. Trey and I own Legacy Cooling together. Contrary to what a lot of my followers on my social platform think, I do have a job and that I do go to the office. And the second that I open my eyes in the morning, I'm like, okay, where's my son? Where's Trey? What do I got to do today? Breakfast, dog, Remy, chicken, horse, Bruce. Hey, I'm out of salt. Where's the spoon? It's like a mom, as a mom, you any mom that's listening to this, like, you'll understand this is like, you just get this like crazy like influx of just stuff that just goes in your mind, and you just go into this like go to work and you just get it done, and it's just one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and you can only control what you can control. A lot of things are if I don't get out of the house like by 8:00, I can't get upset about it, or if the animals they got fed half an hour later, I can't get upset about it, because that's just the way that it is. And we're just doing our job and doing the best that you can. Yeah. And I'm not doing this by myself. I have an amazing helper. She takes care of everything during the week, the feedings, and the day-to-day. And then I do everything on the weekends, and Trey helps, of course, here and there. But, I, for the most part, take all the horses to the vet when they need to go to the vet. I do hire out a little bit of the hauling if they need to go somewhere for training. I don't do all the training myself. I'm not even going to pretend to be a horse trainer. I don't do that. A little bit, yes, here and there. Making sure all of our inventory is good, that we have all the feeds. We have a lot of different diets for the horses, so running out of stuff is not ideal. I have to make sure that I have like all the medications and the feeds and the supplements. That's kind of like almost a full-time job in itself, just making sure that everyone's eating the right way, including myself, including Trey, and including our son. We have all the dogs. It's just, people ought to say, like, how do you do it? And I guess that's what I'm trying to answer, is like, you just do it. You just do it.
There's no other option.
I decided this is what I wanted for my life. So I knew that this was an immense responsibility or a huge undertaking. And like I said at the beginning, I have the energy, I have the know-how, I have the space. It's a blessing to be able to do this and raise our son in this environment, because he's learning compassion for animals and he's seeing life and death. And I think that that's sheltered a lot from young children and even, adults, and people can't handle that. And, it kind of comes full circle. Mom goes to work and mom makes me breakfast, and mom takes care of the horses, and I help mom. I feed my chickens, and I help mom clean up the horse manure. And he's learning. He has his own little tractor that he picks up all the balls in the yard that the dogs like throw all over the place. So I guess that would be what a typical day is. It just, where's the need? Try to be organized as best that you can. And you have a really good team to help you do that, because you can't do it by yourself. I'm not even going to pretend to be like a superwoman, because I'm not. You have to do this with an army, with a village, as people say.
And being that you're really only about a year and a half, not even a year and a half into this journey with the sanctuary, what are your long-term goals for this ranch, for this sanctuary?
So we're kind of at max capacity at this point. 30 is our number that we can sustain here just with our pastures and our pens and the barn. I would like to expand to help more horses. You know, horses are always going to get sent to slaughter without legislation. Legislation's the only thing that's going to change that. But in the meantime, you can help some, rehabilitate some, give some a soft landing. I need more space to do that because being a sanctuary, you know, I've hit a limit with the amount. And, you know, expanding to another property and hiring on more people and more volunteers that are passionate about this project as I am, and growing and spreading awareness. And that's what this whole thing is about, and how it started was just spreading awareness because I was in the horse industry, or am in the horse industry. I rodeoed in my first life and I knew horses were going to come back to me. I just didn't know in what capacity. I had absolutely no idea this is what it was going to be in this way. And spreading the awareness, and that would be, I guess, a long-term goal would just be using my platform to help educate, help people make better decisions, adopting, volunteering, you know, signing these petitions, sharing, spreading awareness.
And to date, you funded this entire endeavor yourself. To continue operation, to expand operation, it will take significant resources. Tell us about your efforts to start a nonprofit and how listeners tuning in can support the Canyon House.
Yeah, so we started a nonprofit. You know, it was getting rather expensive for us. We would like community involvement. I would like to get volunteers. People like to be a part of something. You know, I've had a lot of inquiries and a lot of interest with volunteers, you know, following our day-to-day on our Instagram, you know, looking at our website. Donations, of course, are always welcome. 100% goes to the horses, feed, vet, everything. Horses are expensive. You know, a lot of rescues will fundraise before they even pull a horse out to become, you know, make sure that they're financially responsible for that. It's, you know, just in the first month of their life, it can be up to $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, depending on what kind of an animal horse that you're pulling out and what their condition is. So it really adds up.
So what is the website address people can go to learn more and get involved?
Sure. The website is canyonhousesanctuary.org. It shares our story on there. It has pictures, shares what we do. There is a donation link on there that takes you to a platform where you can choose whatever you'd like. You can sponsor a horse. You can donate a bag of feed. Our Instagram is on there as well, which is the.canyonhouse. That's the only social media platform that I can handle right now. I can't handle TikTok or Facebook, so we're just using the one. We'll maybe at some point expand that.
And I would encourage all the listeners to visit the.canyonhouse on Instagram. Sarah shares her daily journey, everything from the heartwarming to the heartbreaking, and a bunch of silliness in between. This has been an incredible interview. Sarah, we thank you for your time with us today. We thank you for the work that you're doing in the equine community on behalf of these horses. And it is my sincere hope that the listeners will be moved by this story and feel compelled to get involved in whatever way that they can. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Voices of the Valley, a Western Growers production, produced by Corey Lundy, Ann Donahue, Michelle Rivera, Kara Timmons, and Julia Nellis. As always, we'd like to give a special shout out to our guest for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to catch our future episodes, and we invite you to follow us on social media to continue the conversation.